Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Cody. Really appreciate it. And any chance I can talk about some basketball and Vincennes, I'm up for it.
Yeah, really interesting to have this conversation with you. JUCO basketball. I haven't got a chance to have a JUCO coach on. To be able to talk about your program, the success of your program. Some of your guys, and how JUCO basketball, is different from the D1 level, and what you offer at your program.
Yeah, we have a great situation at Vincennes. Like I said, I've been here for 21, going on 22 seasons now. Actually grew up in Lawrenceville, Illinois, which is only 10 to 15 minutes away. So I grew up, kind of a VU fan before I even worked here. And then I got my associate's degree from here before I went to University of Kentucky. So I've been around VU basketball since the 1980s, so a long time, and coached here since 2005. So Vincennes is pretty unique in the junior college, landscape. Just if not the top tradition and history of any junior college out there, definitely in the top two or three, and with national titles and most trips to the national tournament in Hutchinson, Kansas, out of any program, and most all-time wins and great facilities, Hall of Fame coaches, great campus. Obviously, Indiana's a big basketball state, so Vincennes University and men's basketball has been really good for a really long time, and we're just trying to keep it rolling and try to win that fifth national championship.
That's awesome. Vincennes, you guys just don't have recent success. You guys have had generations of success. How difficult is it to maintain that standard year after year at your level?
It's difficult because, and now the Division Ones are starting to see what we've been dealing with, where your rosters turn over every year. This year we have three guys back from last season's team, and the other 11 are brand new. A good year might be five or six guys returning, but I don't know if that's going to be able to be sustainable going forward. With everybody's a qualifier, and if you play well here, you're going to get some D1 offers. And, we encourage our guys, if they have good D1 offers, to take them, whether it be 1 or 2 years. So, it started with Alan Bradfield and Dan Sparks and, Everett Sullivan, David Ragland, and now, Coach Franklin over the last 16 years. And, you're expected to win here. You're expected to compete for a national championship. And more people ask when you lose a game, what happened, than when you win. We were 31-3, and you know the three games you lose, people kind of say, well, what happened, instead of the 31 wins. So I don't think it's pressure. I mean, we get to coach basketball for a living. There's a lot more pressure things than that. We just try to do our best every day and get really good people, really good players. And, if we work hard, I think, the wins and losses usually take care of themselves.
Vincennes is amongst the winningest programs in junior college basketball history. Does that history help you recruit, or do you still have to sell every recruit, on what Vincennes can do for them individually?
A little bit of both. I think the tradition, definitely the name, whether the kid knows much about Vincent's or not, probably one of the coaches does, or a parent. So they might not, every kid grows up wanting to play for Kentucky or Duke or Carolina or IU. They don't necessarily dream of going to junior college, but not all guys can go directly there. They sometimes they need a year or two of development to get to where they ultimately are. Maybe they're a Division 1 talent, but they just didn't get the offers that they wanted. So um, you know it's uh, it's a great opportunity here, and we try to get really high quality guys that are good students and good players, and sell them on the facilities, sell them on tradition. We have a jersey wall that has over 100 jerseys on it, where our former players have went. That is really nice, and I think recruits, that catches their eyes. I mean, when you see North Carolina and Kentucky and Louisville and Michigan and Oregon and all these schools that our guys have transferred to, and then to the right of that, we have an NBA wall where we've had 12 former players, make the NBA. All that tradition definitely helps, but they also want to know, well, where do I fit in on this coming year? What's the team look like? What's the last few years look like? Who have you sent to Division 1 recently? So I think it's a little bit of both, but I do think the tradition and the history definitely helps.
You kind of spoke about the culture a little bit. You guys have made an incredible number of runs or appearances in the NCG or the NJCAA national tournament. What is it about the culture there that helps you guys consistently win at a high level?
Well, I think especially the last 16 years with Coach Franklin, the culture has been very, very good. Not to say that it wasn't before, but I'm just speaking of the last, the current coaching staff. But we really try to get really good people that are obviously good players, and then we hold them to a very high standard. Sometimes a higher standard than they might hold themselves. I mean, you're going to go to class. We want you to be there early. We want you to be well liked throughout the community. We want you to, obviously work very hard, be very unselfish, all those things, and then we hold you to that standard. And we tell guys when we recruit them, if you want to go and just be a hangout guy and do all the other stuff other than school and basketball, no hard feelings. But this probably isn't the place to be. There's probably more fun places to hang out and party than Vincennes, Indiana. But if you're serious about school and academics and moving on to a 4 year school and having a chance to win a national championship and all those things, this is and to be around really good people. What kind of teammates are you going to have? You're going to be around guys that are bad people. That doesn't make it a very fun experience. So we try to do our very best to have the right people in the building. And when you have that and you hold them accountable and have that discipline, then I think it creates a good culture.
Is winning something you recruit, something you develop, or is it just a combination of both?
We try to get guys from winning programs. If they've won in high school, if they've won at their previous school, if they're a transfer, then obviously that's going to be something we're really interested in. Now, sometimes you'll have a really good player that maybe didn't have a whole lot of help and their team wasn't as good as you'd like, but it always helps to have a state champion or a team is in the Final Four or guys that have been used to winning, whether it's AAU or high school or like I said, their previous school or whatever. That winning DNA definitely helps. And for the guys that didn't win as much, we hope that at least the majority will rub off on them. And then with myself being here so long and Coach Franklin and the other coaches that we've had through here, also instilling in them. We tell our guys all the time. We kind of have an idea what it looks like. Making the national tournament so many years and win 85% of our games and things like that. So if you just listen, even if you don't know, and maybe you didn't win at your previous spot, if you just listen to what we're telling you, it's probably going to work out for you.
Yeah, you guys just don't have, you're not just trying to have winning seasons. You're associated with national titles, competing in the on the biggest stage in JUCO ball. Like with part of the program with that championship history. What are your expectations like internally for you? The coaches and the guys.
Well, basketball wise, we're trying to win a national championship every year. Obviously, we've only won four in our history, so the odds aren't great. But that's our goal every year is to win our region, the regular season. We have a very good region. To win the region tournament, and then to win the national tournament. I mean, that's the goal. We feel like we should be able to compete and win in every game that we're in. Doesn't mean we will, but that's the plan. And then academically and stuff, we graduate. I don't have the exact numbers, but it's close to 100% of the guys that go through here, whether they're here 1 or 2 years, and either they're qualified and they leave after one, then obviously they wouldn't graduate. But guys that we have here 2 years, they almost always get their associate's degree, and we have a great track record of moving guys primarily to Division 1, but then we'll send guys to Division 2 in NAIA schools. I mean, anybody that makes it through here, makes it through the program, is going to get a scholarship somewhere. We never promise what level you'll get to, whether it's low major, mid major, high major, D2. We don't know that. That depends on a lot of factors and how hard you want to work and how much we win and just different things. But we'll make sure we get you somewhere do what you're supposed to do. And so we hold them to a very high, very high standard off the court. You're around your kids and stuff so much. You don't want to have knuckleheads and guys that you don't want to be around. So, we have them around our families a lot over to eat, and I have three young kids, and Coach Franklin's got a couple daughters and his wife, and the other coaches we've had in the past have all had kids. So we really try to bring in guys that we really like to be around, and hold them to the highest standard on the court and off the court.
Do when guys commit, to Vincennes, do they understand that they're coming somewhere that simply, get having a winning record isn't just necessarily the standard there?
Yeah, they should. We try to be very honest and very upfront from the start. We don't promise anything, but we let them know, if they don't know the tradition and the history, then we make sure they know about it. They know about, the former players. They know about the former teams. They know about the championship teams, the NBA players, the Final Four teams. So, like I said, when they see the jersey wall, like I said, we were 31-3 last year. I think 28-5 the year before. A couple 30-win seasons there. So they may not know about it when the recruiting process first starts, but by the time they get here, and then we had most of the team here for summer school, other than two. They understand that it's. I mean, you got the other teams are circling their schedule, that we're a big game. Um, it's not a game. We're going to get everybody's best shot. Nobody's going to overlook us, or, I'll go watch a game and watch a team play, and there won't be 20 people in the stands, and then we come the next week and it's pretty big. It's packed. So it's a big game, and I think the guys. And I think once they go and see other, no knock on other schools and other colleges and stuff, our facilities and campus and being a university is not your typical how we travel. Things like that are maybe a little better than the majority, maybe not all, but majority of the junior colleges. And they kind of see how, the dining center we have, the dorms, it's really set up more like a low to mid Division I campus and arena and things like that. I think they see, hey, if I'm going to be in junior college, there's no place I'd rather be.
You were part of the 2019, or you were part of the staff for the 2019 national championship. What stands out when you look back at that team?
They were uh, they were very hardworking. They all really liked each other on and off the floor. They were very tight knit. We had a really talented team. A very good mix of guys. Obviously we had Craig Porter Jr. was a freshman on that team that plays for the Cleveland Cavs, but Keith Clemens was one of the top point guards in the country. Kevin Osawe was a 6'6" wing who was the MVP of the national tournament. George Dixon was one of the top five rebounders in the country. Lonnie Francis, our post player, was a two-time All-American, and could really score inside. And you got Kevin Kangu, Colton Sandage, and Jordan Lyons were kind of the three main guys off the bench that were all Division I players. So we had 8 Division I players that were all really enjoyed each other, and they all had specific roles. And we had some other good guys on the team also that just didn't get much playing time because those 8 were so good. But they all did specific things, and they were just so tough and had that we don't want to lose mentality. A lot of the guys had been through the year before with Keith and Lonnie and George and some of those guys, and had won 30 some games as freshmen. And then, we thought we had a really good chance to repeat in 2020 as national champions. Had a really good team with a number of those guys back, and COVID canceled the tournament right before we were going out to Kansas. So we thought we had a chance to repeat, but I guess we'll never know on that one.
What separates a team that's really good from a team, going to Hutchinson and winning a title?
I think the toughest teams, the most unselfish teams, and the most disciplined teams, and then you have to have a little luck. Sometimes it's matchups. You got to make sure everybody stays healthy. You got to, sometimes you might get a bad call here or there that could determine the game. Hope it didn't come down to that. We lost A couple years ago. I can't remember if it was the Final Four or Elite Eight, and one of our probably our second leading scorer got hurt, less than 10 minutes into the game and couldn't come back. And, things like that, and we end up losing that game. So obviously you have to have a little bit of fortune, a little bit of luck, but you have to be got to be talented, you got to be disciplined, you got to be unselfish, and then we're always kind of known as a really good defense and rebounding team. We're usually always plus 10 to 12 at least on rebounding for the season, and then defensively we're usually top 10, top 5 in the country defensively. So if you can guard and rebound, you don't turn it over a whole lot, and you play unselfishly and play hard, and you got some talent and all that good stuff, you set yourself up to have a chance.
How much does having players who completely buy into their roles matter, like winning at the JUCO level?
I think that's a big thing because everybody came here, or most guys come to junior college, they were the stars on their high school team. And maybe they didn't have to play defense all the time. Maybe they didn't have to worry about rebounding. Maybe they didn't have to, pass the ball that much because, they were going to play 32 minutes of high school regardless of what they did. Maybe they didn't have to practice hard every day. And, we have 14 guys on the roster for this coming year, and we think we have, if not 14 Division I players, close to it. So there's going to be competition every day. You could be a really good player, and you're probably only going to play 8 or 9 guys, big minutes. So you could be a really good player and not play that much. Sometimes if you're here 2 years, your first year you don't play much, and then might play a lot your next year. But as far as getting guys to buy into their roles, not everybody can shoot the ball 20 times a game. We're usually a very balanced team. We don't usually have a lot of guys that average 22, 23 points a game. We're more, leading scorer might be 17, then you might have a 15, then you might have a 12, then you might have a 10. And I think that makes us tough to play because we're really balanced with a number of good players. Instead of saying, "Hey, we stopped, so and so, and we're going to beat Vincennes," we feel like we have a pretty balanced team. And then I've seen other teams that kind of the opposite, that have a lot of talent, individual talent, and you look at it on paper and you're like, this guy's talented, but they don't play well together, or they don't play smart, and it's more of an individual thing than the best teams. I mean, I don't think us at Vincennes are the most talented teams every night we go out there, or through the years. I mean, we have enough talent, but I don't think we're just walking out there rolling the balls out and just beating people because we're, so much more talented than them. So I think it's very important.
Moving players to the next level. One of the biggest things recruits and families want to know when choosing a junior college is, where can this place take me? You guys at Vincennes have a long history of moving players to 4-year programs. What does your staff do differently when it comes to preparing players for the next opportunity?
I think Division I coaches know if they get a player out of Vincennes that they're going to be tough. You can't be soft and play here. I mean, you got to compete every day in practice. I mean, you've been in big games. You're used to winning. You're used to being coached. I mean, we get after them pretty well. We want you to, obviously we think you have some talent and stuff when you come in here, but we want you to be much better when you leave, whether it's 1 or 2 years than when you came here. We're really big on individual skill development, very big on the weight room. I mean, we're kind of known for a strong team, and we put a lot of time in for that. So I think, you know, Division I coaches like our guys because they know we don't take problem guys. I mean, especially at the next level. I mean, these coaches are their livelihoods on the line, and they're making big money, and their families, and they know if they get a player from Vincennes, he's probably going to be a good guy. It's going to go to class and work hard and be coachable and know what it takes to win. And you can't get that at every junior college. They're not all the same. I think we always tell people when you talk about Division I, like everybody knows, who the big, the Arizonas, the Yukons, like we said, the Kentuckys, you know the different levels between schools. I think a lot of people don't know with junior college, they think they're all the same. Especially kids who don't know much about it. And some coaches, they don't know the difference. Well, you don't, they're not all the same, just like, Division I's not all the same on winning and losing, on exposure, on how you live, how you travel, what your facilities are like, access to those facilities. We have 10 full courts here at Vincennes that you can work out, basically from 7:30, 8 o'clock at night till 10, 11 at night. Some schools have one court, maybe two, and if volleyball's using it, or women's basketball, or they're having a concert or something's going on, you don't have a facility to get into. At the Division 1 level, they all have practice gyms, and they have 24-hour access at a lot of them things. But junior college is not like that. So I think we have some advantages there, and it's just letting them see it, and know that, hey, we're not, not all junior colleges are the same.
So when a guy arrives at Vincennes, how early does the conversation start about where they could eventually wind up after they play at Vincennes?
We don't really talk too much early on that. We're kind of like, hey, if you do the work and you worry about getting better every day and you worry about winning games, that's going to take care of themselves. Like I said, Coach Franklin's been coaching over 30 years. I've been coaching, counting high school and stuff, over 30 years. So, and then all the players that have come out of Vincennes before. So they're going to know about you. We tell when kids come in on a recruiting visit, we say we can't promise where you're going to end up or anything like that, but they're going to know about you. So if you focus on getting better every day, getting stronger, getting the IQ part, the skill wise, and we're winning games, that's going to take care of themselves. When you get starts getting down, once the season's over, we'll see. I mean, we have coaches coming to practices, coaches coming to games, and all those type of things, all the time, and texting us, calling us, what do you think, and recruiting services, things like that. But we don't really focus too much on the next step. We want them, their feet, focus on where they're at now. And if they get to as good as they can be here now, and we win as much as we can win now, then everybody's going to get to where they want to get in the end. So as far as really talking to them a lot about it, really not till the season's over, and we'll say, okay, who's interested? Who do you want to visit? If the players ask our opinions, we'll tell them, but it's their career, they're the ones going to college, so we never tell them where to go or who to visit or anything like that. But if they ask us, "What do you think about this team?" or "What do you think about this coach?" then we'll tell them. But that stuff, our guys usually end up at the best places they can end up.
Is there a misconception that JUCO is simply about putting up numbers and getting recruited?
Yeah, I would think so. We never really have anybody ask us, what did so and so average? What did this guy average point wise? What he average rebound wise? Or they may ask percentages, or what he shoot from three, or things like that. But it's really more, number one, do you like him? Do you like coaching him? How tough is he? Did he help you win? And then they're going to watch themselves. But they want guys that win, that are tough, that know how to play. And so I don't think, you could average, 22, 23 on a bad team playing, bad competition. I mean, and that doesn't translate to the next level on good programs. You'd rather get somebody, in my opinion, and what coaches have told us is, that's a really good piece on a top level junior college team that's winning and knows how to play, and other good players, and then just somebody that maybe they rolled the balls out and he scored a lot of points, but they're 15 and 14, and they shot 25 times a game. And so I've never really had anybody ask me what somebody's numbers were. It was more, can they do this? Depending on what position, if they're a point guard, can they guard? Can they get in the paint? Can they knock down shots? Do they turn it over? How tough are they? Those are more questions than just stats.
You said a few things there. So when D1 coaches or any 4-year coaches, like when they call to ask about one of your guys, do they ask you about their talent, their character, their academics, work ethic, their habits, or just all of it?
Yeah, really all of it. And they're the same things that we look for when we recruit guys. So pretty much any level, for high school kids or parents that might be listening. I mean, coaches don't want to bring in troubled, guys that are going to cause trouble, and more work for them. And what I mean by that is, They don't want to bring in headaches that, okay, is this guy going to go to class? Is he always going to be having problems in class? Is he going to have a problem with teammates? Does he have a bad attitude? If he doesn't play that much, is he going to, pout about it? Or is he going to be a good teammate and try to keep working and get better? Are the parents going to be a problem? I mean, we got guys that are in college. This isn't high school basketball or AAU or middle school. I mean, you really need your son or daughter, if they have a question or something, to reach out to the coach more so than a parent calling or texting. It's time for them to learn and to grow up and to figure things out. And in my opinion, more so than the parent, as far as playing time and things like that. Now, if they want to know how they're doing academically or things like that, then I can definitely fill them in, and I'll talk to them if they want to know why they're not playing as much or things like that. But I think it's better to come from the players and things like that. But yeah, I'm sorry. What was your original question? I kind of went off on a tangent there.
It was just pretty much about, when a coach calls and asks about your guys.
Yeah.
They asking about academics, their talent,
Mhm.
their character, their practice habits. I'm sure they're asking all those. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't,
Yeah.
but yeah, you would be no different than any other school. I mean,
Hmm.
no
Yeah.
different, no different than any other level.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have to be eligible. So they want to know how you're doing academically. Now for junior college, you have to have a 2.5 grade point average and graduate from here. If you're here for 2 years, if you're a qualifier, I think it's 2.5 and your best 24 hours. But so they're going to ask about academically how they are and all those things that you mentioned. That same thing we ask, coaches when we recruit their guys. Do you like them? Are they tough? Do they help you win? Do they work on their game outside of practice, or they only clock in and clock out when it's from 3 to 6? Do they love the game? All those type of things.
How important are the relationships that you and your staff have developed with four-year coaches around the country?
It's important, and that's I think it helps. That they know that our word means something, because we always tell our guys we're not going to lie for you. We're not, if you don't work hard, if you're not this or that, we're not going to tell somebody else that you are, because our word has to mean something. So we try to be really honest. Now we'll try to focus on the positives, obviously, but we're not going to lie for a kid or lie to somebody whose job relies on it and tell them that they're this when they're not. So it's very important to have that relationship, and then so they'll know that, hey, if the guys at Vincennes say so and so is a good player and tough, that's probably going to mean something to them. And having those relationships, they know you're not going to lie to them or just feed them some BS. And then they'll, sometimes they'll have some players that they're recruiting that maybe they don't have a spot for, and they want us to take them for a year or two. So the more connections, pretty much like any business, the more relationships and networking and things like that you can have with guys at the next level, the better.
Yeah, I mean, if you call a D1 or D2 coach and say, I got a guy for you, that trust that they have in you is very valuable. You've been there for 2 decades, right?
Yeah, yeah, they know that. You know, that hopefully they know we know what we're talking about, and we're not just gonna, I'm not calling, Coach Pope at Kentucky for somebody that's a low major player. We kind of have an idea of what would be a good fit, and that coach and that coaching staff and their program, and hey, this guy right here would be really good for you. And then, then it's up to them. We'll get them whatever film. We'll open up practice. But I think our tradition and history and guys being successful at the next level, not just being successful here. We don't want them to be good players and good students here and then go to the next school and flame out. And they very rarely do, because they've been pushed so hard here to do things the right way. So when they get to the next spot, nothing's really going to surprise them a whole lot. At least that's been our experience, and almost all of them have gotten their bachelor's degree and have been, successful at whatever their next 4 year school has been.
Vincennes has also had players reach like the highest level of basketball, like said in the opening. When you look back at the number of Vincennes players who've actually reached the NBA, What does that say about the level of talent that actually comes through the program?
Yeah, there's been a tremendous amount of talent and players that, have come through here even before, we were here. When you go back to, Bob McAdoo is probably one of the most, probably the most famous guy that came out of Vincennes, and he led the NBA in scoring and went to North Carolina and then played for the Lakers and some people in the NBA, and you got Sean Marion and Ricky Green was a longtime pro, and Eric Williams and Tyrone Nesby, and all these guys, and then the guys that we've coached with Craig and Michael Mulder, and that's just the NBA guys. And we've had a lot of guys that have played overseas and at high major Division I programs and good mid major programs. So I think a lot of people maybe don't understand the level of junior college, at the top level, how good you have to be. Like I said, we don't recruit anybody that we don't think is either Division I player now or is going to be a Division I player. So it's a pretty high level. We want to get the best guys that we can. So I mean, we have, uh, I don't think the average person, especially maybe in some of the people in Kentucky, because I graduated from UK and spent 4 years down there. Because a lot of the Kentucky high school stuff, there's not really any junior colleges around. They used to have Sullivan, that was a really
Yeah.
good, won the national title back in the '90s. But those kids in Kentucky grew up either Kentucky fans or U of L fans, or you might have some Western or EKU, or they just don't know much about junior college, no fault of their own. But once we kind of talk to them and show them what we can offer them, then they usually, if the Division I options are not there right away, then they get pretty interested.
You said one of the names that stood out, or his example, is Michael Mulder. What do you remember about Michael? When he was there at Vincennes.
Michael, was a guy that we recruited. He was from Windsor, Ontario, Canada, which is right next to Detroit. And we had known his high school coach, Pete Cusimano, for a while before Michael. And he had brought some players down when you're talking about relationships and things like that. And we didn't end up taking his previous player, but when he said it, talked to us about Michael, he was extremely athletic in high school. 6'4", could jump out the gym, long arms, was getting some low major type looks out of high school. We didn't really know him as a big time shooter when we recruited him. It was more just a really bouncy, could really run, 6'4" long arm athlete. When he got here, he won every sprint he had in the 2 years he was here. I mean, just could really, I mean, when we do team sprints, he was going to win. And then he really worked on his shot, and he shot 40 some percent from three, I believe, his second year. His first year, he was a good player, part time starter on a really good team, had a really good summer, kept working. And then his sophomore year, there again, he only averaged maybe 15 or 16. It wasn't like he was, averaging 25 a game. He was 15, 16, but we had a really good team again. He played with really good people, and he had that 6'4" with probably a, I don't know, 6'10" wingspan. And then you throw on the 40% plus from three, and then we won 30 plus games. When it got in the spring, which most of our guys sign late, he's the top shooting guard in the country available. And then he's a good student and high character. And I mean, he's got Kentucky, he's got Creighton, he's got Coach Pitino at Louisville, he's got Indiana when Tom Crean was there, and he's picked, Wichita State. He's picking amongst the best of the best. And that never would have happened, coming out of high school. And a lot of it was his hard work and being coachable and all those things, and a lot of it was the Vincennes name and winning games and being around good people and those type of things. I think if he would have went to just a random junior college, I don't know if he would have ended up at Kentucky. So it was a mixture of his hard work and getting better and getting stronger and shooting the ball better, and then winning games and being at Vincennes.
Could you see the potential, for him to eventually become an NBA player when he first got there, or was it was his journey a surprise to you?
I don't think anybody would have probably thought NBA when he first got there. We knew he was a good player, We thought he would be really good for us, but no, I don't. I wouldn't think NBA. It's hard to, at least at our level, to get too many. I mean, there's not a whole lot of Sean Marions and Larry Johnsons and Steve Francis, that just walk in there, you're like, that guy's an NBA guy nowadays because everybody's a qualifier. It used to be kind of back in the day, junior college was where guys that had been in trouble,
Yep.
non qualifiers. I mean, that's what JUCO was. And the talent level was probably a lot higher than it is now. I mean, there was a lot of high major guys back in the day. I mean, Vincennes used to have, Tyrone Nesby at UNLV when they were rolling, and Deshae Jones went to Tennessee, and Damon Lyles went to Memphis, and Tyrone Outlaw had committed to NC State on one team. I mean, they got 4 or 5 high major guys because they were non-qualifiers or transfers. So nowadays, you get more of the D2, low major, maybe mid major talents. And then you kind of see how they develop, which ones get better, which ones work the hardest, and getting the right fits and things like that. So no, I wouldn't have thought Michael or Craig that we have now would have been NBA guys, but I'm very happy that they were, and they definitely earned it and played well when Mike was there and Craig now. But coming through the door at the time, I probably wouldn't have predicted that.
His journey is very interesting because it shows players that, everyone's path, isn't going to look the same. What can a younger player learn from his story?
I think number one is finding a good fit, finding a place where you can play and get better and be coached and be around good people. It's not always about the biggest name and things like that. It's where you're going to be able to play and the opportunity. I think some people develop later. Maybe how good they were at 17, 18. Maybe they're a lot better at 20, 21 because they've bodies matured. Maybe they've gotten a lot, you got to put in the work, but they've gotten stronger. They shoot a lot better. Their handles a lot better. Their, IQ's a lot better, whatever it is. So if you do not have the options coming out of high school that maybe you would like, that's not the end of the story. I mean, there's been so many guys that have benefited, where they go Division 2, Division 1, in the Iowa, wherever, and get their college paid for, which we know that's a huge thing. Whatever level you can play at, if you can get somebody to pay for all your college or part of your college, that's a big thing. So just because, and a lot of people think, well, they're sleeping on me, or I should be this, or I should be that. Well, there's 360 or so Division 1 programs, and they all get, 15 scholarships now. So, and that could be
Yeah.
true, but it also may be true. Maybe you're not quite ready yet, and there's nothing wrong with that. You just got to get better and keep working. Or, nowadays with Twitter and X and all the social media, they probably know of you, probably have seen you, and for whatever reason, they choose to pass at this time. Which, like I said, nothing wrong with that at all. But you got to look at whether you end up in junior college or you do a post grad prep school, or you start out at an NAIA and get better. Nowadays, everything's a 1 year thing. Get as good as you can get your grades as good as they can get. Improve your game, and you'll be seen by the right people.
How rewarding is it as a coach to watch somebody come through Vincennes, continue to develop, and eventually reach the league, NBA?
It's really rewarding. I mean, it's pretty cool to turn on TNT or ESPN and see a guy that you coached and remember back when he was 18 years old. And we just had a couple former players got married this weekend, and not even guys that made the NBA. It's just really rewarding any of them to go on to the next level and to turn on the TV and see them playing on TV or wherever they're at and doing well, and staying in touch with you and thanking you for any help that you might have given them when they were here, and know that they're doing well, and seeing them getting their bachelor's degrees and things like that. So all that's extremely rewarding. I mean, everybody loves to win games and championships and things like that, but I think the most enjoyable part for me is the relationships and the friendships you make, and that are lifelong, and checking up on you and you checking them on them, and they getting to know your family and your kids and your wife and things like that, and just those relationships outside of basketball, because everybody has a unique story where they're from, what their family background's like, what their basketball trajectory's like. They come from, all the players and stuff come from all over the world. So it's really neat to be able to, kind of expand your horizons and meet people from, all over.
Yeah, JUCO. I think a lot of people misunderstand JUCO. What JUCO really is. I think high school recruits, maybe their parents misunderstand JUCO. What do you think recruits and parents misunderstand the most about junior college basketball?
I'd say two things. I'd say one, just I don't think they understand how good you have to be, like the talent level. There's a lot of good high school players that have great careers that scored, 1,500 points in high school that really probably can't play here or at a top level junior college, and maybe they don't understand that. And that's no knock on them. If it, it's just kind of maybe they don't understand. Maybe they haven't been to a JUCO game and seen it. And then I guess the perception used to be, and I don't know if it still is, but like I said, JUCO was for guys that had been in trouble and
Mhm.
bounced around or weren't serious students or we just roll the balls out and just it's like pickup ball or something like that, and that obviously couldn't be further from the truth. From the right programs. I mean, there are some programs that might fit that, but we have really good guys and high character and students. I mean, we run it like a Division I program. So I think that's probably the two misconceptions of just, oh, I can go play JUCO and do that. Well, maybe you can, but you better be pretty good. And then, like I said, that maybe the stigma of JUCO in the past was the troubled kids and things like that, and the bad students. But it's not, necessarily that anymore.
You spoke about there's levels to JUCO, like you guys win a lot. Maybe understand the talent level, but what about the competition level? Like, what kind of guys and what kind of programs you guys face?
We're in a really good region. I think sometimes it's a little underrated. Just between us and John A. Logan, you have two of the last 5 or 6 national champions. Logan's been out there a few times in the last few years. I mean, they got a guy that just got signed with the Lakers, big 7'5" kid, the tallest kid in the NBA, Jamarian Sharp, who's from Western Kentucky down in
Yeah,
Hoptown.
yeah,
So they're in our league, and then they had Jay Scrub, who got drafted right out of Logan, was an NBA guy, had a cup of coffee in the NBA, and Wabash Valley had Antoine Barber, who played at Kentucky back in the
yep.
day, and Tony Allen, who had a long career in the NBA, is from Wabash Valley. So I think our league, and then you got other good programs. I don't want to name all of them, but it's a tough league. All the teams are in Illinois except for us. So that's our region. And then, we also, this coming year, will play Indian Hills in Iowa, out of Iowa, who's one of the top JUCO programs in the country. We played them out at Hutch. Hutch is where the national tournament is in Kansas every year. They're usually out there. We're playing Walters State out of Tennessee this year, who's probably a preseason top 5 or 10 team. They've been out to Hutch. Columbia State out of uh, out of
Tennessee.
Tennessee, down by Nashville. We play them every year. They're out of Hutch every other year. And then some others I'm probably forgetting, but we play a really tough schedule. We don't have we play 30 regular season games, and I think 28 or 29 of them are Division I or NJCAA teams, and I think all 30 are NJCAA teams, and maybe 28 of them are Division I, and then a couple Division II. And in the Division II, we play Henry Ford out of Michigan, is really good, out of Detroit, and they're one of the top Division II JUCOs in the country. So we play a lot of talented teams, and we got to be ready every night, or we could lose to any of them.
Who is the ideal player for Vincennes? What characteristics make you say that's a Vincennes guy?
I think, obviously the talent wise, you'd like to have, positional size. We don't take a lot of really small guys, but sometimes we will if they're good. But size for position, IQ of the game, how tough they are, how competitive they are. And we always say there's a difference between playing hard and being competitive. Are you really competing to win every possession, every game, every day? We keep track of our winners in open gym in the summer and in the preseason. So we're not just playing just to play. I mean, we keep track of daily winners, and we mix up the team so everybody's playing with everybody. So you're not just stacking your team. But basketball wise, just athleticism. Obviously, the taller, longer, more athletic you are. And more skilled you are, the better. And then character wise, like I said, the ideal guy is no maintenance, not low maintenance, no maintenance. Just if we have a meeting at 3:30, they're going to be in there by 3:20. If they're supposed to have their phones off, then their phones are off. If they're, we put our head down to go to sleep at night, we're not worried about them running around, doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. And we're not getting emails from the teachers that hey, they're missed class, or they're, no, we also understand they're 18 to 21-year-old kids, and they're not robots. We're not coaching robots. I know when I was 18 to 21 years old, I don't have it all figured out now, but I definitely didn't then. And made mistakes and did things I wasn't supposed to. And so it's also our job as the adults and the coaches to work with them and try to teach them why to do certain things each way. But the perfect player would be that type of player that takes care of their business, is a good guy in the community, that people like, that people want to coach and want to root for. And if we have all those type of things and we get enough of them, we feel like we're going to be pretty good.
How much development can realistically happen during 1 or 2 years in your program?
We've seen guys get, put on 30, 35 pounds of muscle. We've seen guys, like I said, well, I'll tell you one good example was a kid named Chris Darrington that we had that was a big time point guard. That ended up going to the University of Tennessee, and his sophomore year, he was ranked the number one junior college point guard in the country. And his freshman year, we were okay. The team was okay, not bad, but not great. And not bad or not great here is still 25 wins. So I don't want to act like we're bad, but it wasn't one of our top teams. But he shot in the 20s from three as a freshman. I don't know, 27% maybe. Second year, he shot like 42%. So improved by 12 to 13% in 1 year from three, and that took him from a low to mid major player to a high major player because he's quick. He can really score the ball. He could score at all three levels. He had a really good mid range, but then now he's shooting 40 to 42% from three, and he just put in the work and worked on some things on his form, but a lot of it was just him putting in time and putting in the work. So you can improve a lot from 1 to 2 years, but it's not, there's no magic wand. We can't just say, hey, you're here and they're going to take you. It's, you got to listen to the coaching. You got to put in the time that we have during practice, and then you got to get in that weight room and in the gym and put in that extra time. But, like I said, we've had guys come in we had a 7 foot kid that went to Seton Hall that was probably 190, 195 pounds when he came in, and he was probably 230 when he left, because of the weight room and eating right and all those type of things. So, obviously 2 years, you have a lot more time than 1 year to improve and get better and things like that. And then the IQ of the game. I think that's something that's really underrated is not just how athletic you are, how strong you are, but do you understand time and score? Do you understand good shot, bad shot? Do you understand, who's got the hot hand? Let me pass up a good shot for a great shot. So all those things I think you can really improve. There again, going back to high school, sometimes in high school, you're the man, there are no bad shots, or you're not going to get penalized for it. And you making a tough shot might be better than somebody else taking their shot because you're just so much better. But here, and at the next level, when they get to Division 1, you're going to play with other talented guys, or Division 2. So you got to know what a good shot is, a bad shot. Okay, we're up 5 minute 20 to go. Let's run some clock. Let's do this. So I think all that stuff you can really improve in a year or 2 years.
Did his 3-point shot percentage go up due to working on his form, or just taking better shots?
I would say uh, probably the repetition, probably his footwork, getting it right. I don't know his form changed that much. It was probably just how much time he put in the repetition, and then probably also probably better shots because we
Shot
were a little bit
selection.
better team that year and we had more weapons around him. And then his IQ from learning a good shot maybe got better that we just talked about. But I think a lot of it form obviously is important, but then there's all different kind of forms of big time shooters. You know, Larry Bird shot one way, Reggie Miller shot another way, and I don't know if either one of those guys would be textbook forms. We work a lot on, and they're two of the greatest shooters to ever play. We work a lot on footwork, being ready, kind of coach calls it heel toe. If you're a right-handed shooter, going left right. Kind of shooting in rhythm. So we work a lot of with our guys on doing that and getting a consistent footwork. And then it's just about putting in the reps, shooting it the right way over and over and over and over and over. And then you get more confidence. You see it going through the hole. And I think it's a combination of that. I don't know if his form changed a whole lot, but he definitely put in a lot of time and had a huge sophomore year for us.
For the player who thinks he's too good for JUCO because he wants a D1, he wants to go to D1 immediately. What would you tell him?
Well, I think, if you have a good D1 offer and you think that's where you want to be and you think you have a chance to play, then that's a good option, we would tell them. Now, if you're going to go to Division 1, they throw you a scholarship out in the middle of the summer because one came open and you're going to be the 13th guy on the team and you're not, and they're going to have a lot of juniors and seniors and you're not going to play a whole lot. It's hard to develop a whole lot. It's not a lot of fun to not play. It doesn't mean you're guaranteed you're going to play here, but we have all freshmen and sophomores. So at least you're going to be around. We don't have juniors and seniors that you're playing against every day. At that level, those coaches might have 6 year seniors, 5th year seniors, juniors. You're coming in as an 18-year-old freshman. So hey, if you can get a good Division 1 scholarship out of high school and it's a good program and they got a plan for you and it's a good fit, then by all means, then take it. But if you're at a Division 1 that's traditionally had 200 people at their games and they went 7-25 last year, the coach is on the hot seat, and I don't think that would. I would rather be at Vincennes and have a chance to win 30 games and play in a. I don't know what our attendance is, but we have pretty good attendance and a great environment at home, and it's a lot more fun to play and win than to sit on the bench or even play and your coach is hoping to not get fired, and you got that stress and you got the juniors and seniors, and so I would rather be here than to be at a very bottom level Division 1 or a bad Division 2 that nobody cares about. At least here, you're going to have a chance to move up based on coaches coming out and wanting to. We always say they're going to want to like you here because we've had success with good guys. You're going to have to prove them that you're not a good guy, that you can't play. But coming in, they're going to want to say, "Hey, I've heard good things about this kid at Vincennes, and as long as you do your part, I think that would be better than going to a bad Division 1 and or getting a scholarship at the last minute because somebody left and they got one just sitting there, and but you're not going to play or not going to be a good experience."
I want to talk about academics and transferring, because I think families sometimes get confused about how the JUCO to 4-year process actually works. When a player comes to Vincennes, how do you structure their academics? So they're preparing not only to play basketball but also transfer.
Well, we have a great academic situation here. I mean, like I said, we're an actual university, which there's not too many junior colleges that are. But I mean, we're Vincennes University, and we actually have a number of 4 year, bachelor degrees you can get here. But we have a very good academic advisor, Gay Walthall, who works just with our men's basketball program, and she meets with them as soon as they get here. We have a lot of our students take general studies because they're going to be here 1 or 2 years, and then they pick their major at the next school. Sometimes, if you pick a major, a lot of kids are going to change their mind, and they're going to, or they're going to transfer to a school that maybe doesn't offer that, and then they're kind of stuck. But all the general core classes, math, English, science, those will transfer anywhere. And then you can take an elective or two if you think you want to do business. But these are all legitimate classes that will transfer as long as you have to take an acuplacer exam that shows that you're college ready, or they can take your high school transcripts if you're a good enough student. Then you'll take, the regular classes right when you come in, and they'll transfer to any, pretty much any school you go to. So, and then, with myself, like I said, and coach that have been here for so long, and with Gay working with our guys for so long, we know what to put the guys in that will transfer to the 4 year schools, and what they need to take. And then we also offer summer classes before they get here and between their freshman and sophomore years if they're guys that are coming back, which a lot of schools don't have. We'll give you 2 to 3 summer classes, which is 6 to 9 hours, which will help you. And then we have academic study tables 4 nights a week. We have tutors for every subject. So academic wise, the classes are all pretty much 25 students or less. So you get a lot of one-on-one help here. I actually, like I said, I went to school here and got my 2 year degree before going to University of Kentucky, and pretty much all my classes transferred there. That was a long time ago, but um, so academically, you have no issues here. I mean, it's going to set you up, and when you go to that next school, you're going to be prepared. You've been on a college campus. I mean, we have 7 or 8 dorms. I mean, it's a university feel, but it's not too big. Obviously, like UK was a lot bigger, than Vincennes, but it wasn't that big a transition for me because I'd been here for 2 years and kind of figured out how college works. So I think it's a good transition for a lot of kids at 18, 19 years old that maybe aren't ready to go to a 30,000, enrollment school, and has big lecture classes that have 200 kids in the class, and you're just a number, you're just a social security number or whatever, and they don't know you from Adam. I think a junior college is a really good transition for kids that maybe aren't ready to take go to Indiana University or UK or Louisville or these big schools, and maybe they need a year or two to mature, um, and then also get to play athletics. So academically, we take it very seriously. I think we had a 3.3 team GPA last year, and this summer we'll get grades early next week. But I think our summer grades will be even better. So yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing like I remember going to UK, going into college algebra, and there's 200 kids in there, and like I literally had to record the professor doing the math equation on the board because he was literally erasing it as he was going along. And
Yeah.
the first day was overwhelming because I went to a smaller school, community college, with math with 20 people in there, and then you
Hmm.
go over to UK and there's at least 100 in that auditorium looking class. So it is a
Hmm.
different speed for sure. It could be overwhelming for an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Um, so let's get into recruiting. When you evaluate high school players, what catches your attention first?
I think you know probably we look for guys that are on winning teams first. So, like, I know we spoke off air, but, we really start out focusing on Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, Ohio, St. Louis, Nashville, basically a 5 hour Cincinnati, 5 hour radius. And since we've been here and we know those coaches in those states, we kind of know what the top programs are. So we want to find, certain guys we know are going to go to Division 1. So you can mark them off the list. I mean, they're getting offers, they're top 150 guys, whatever, we're not getting them. So you're marking them off the list. But the first thing we're looking at is, are they winning? Then we look at, we'll talk to their coaches and see there again, all those checklists that we talked about. Do their coaches like them? How competitive are they? How tough are they? How do they do in the big games? Do they score 25 in the blowout games? And now we got the big, you know, Ballard versus Trinity game, and he scores two. Do they not show up? And it's not just points, but what I'm saying, they don't. don't play, how do they do in the big games? If they make the state tournament, how do they do in those environments? So really all those type of things. If they rebound really well, that's a transferable thing that we've looked at a lot. If a guy has really high rebounding numbers, that usually translates. Nowadays, you got to be able to shoot the ball. It's hard to take somebody that can't shoot at all. You don't have to be just a knockdown guy, but can he make shots? I think it was Dan Hurley and Gino were talking there a while ago, saying, "Hey, we're recruiting offense and we can teach them defense." And I kind of agree with that too, because you can teach almost anybody to play defense. It's hard to make somebody a scorer or be able to put the ball in the hole if they can't do it. And we're gonna, like I said, coach is a really good defensive coach, so we're gonna be able to guard and rebound. But it's hard to teach somebody to be able to put the ball in the hole. So, can they score a little bit? Do they know how to play? Just the basic things like that, and then their attitudes. How do they act in when they come out of the game? How are they acting in warm ups? How do their parents act? Are their parents? We've had people, coaches, tell us like just this past year, some guys that were really good players, like you don't want to, dad's crazy or mom's crazy, or you don't want to deal with it. And that was it. I mean, we'll do our due diligence, because just because one person says something, maybe they got an axe to grind or whatever. But if we get two or three people saying, yeah, so and so's family, or this guy's a good player but he's not going to work hard, he's not your type of guy, that can cut somebody right then we'll just move on. Or and then another thing I haven't mentioned yet is their social media. We anytime we recruit a player, we get on their X, we get on their Instagram, maybe be TikTok, whatever social media we can find, and we want to see what they're acting like, what they're posting, what they're doing, who they're hanging around with when they're not talking to a coach. Because every kid, or not every kid, but most kids, when they're talking to a coach and stuff, they're yes sir, no sir, and and some of their coaches will lie for them. Oh yeah, he's a good guy, when they know he's not. They know he doesn't work hard. They know he's drinking, smoking, doing whatever. But they'll lie for him. Um, but usually you can kind of see on their social media, okay, what's this guy posting? What are they about? And that can either be a really good sign or a really bad sign. So that's something I think coaches on all level are really. If they don't do their background check on that, then I'm not sure what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. What you just said about social media and looking at their background, and I tell kids and parents all the time, they are their own business, and you're just like an employer looking at a potential employee, right?
Hmm.
You don't want to bring somebody in that's going to have the trouble, and then doesn't fill that roster spot, and you have to bring somebody else in. So,
Hmm.
social media is pretty much. It just shows what type of it could reflect your character, and like I recommend, don't put something out there that could jeopardize, the look of your character, as a coach or as a program. Have something that reflects yourself. And you were talking about parents. You use the word crazy parents. Like, what kind of issues do you have with parents like that as a coach? You've been there for 22 years or a coach for 30 years. What kind of issues, like, why is that an issue, to have a player with a parent that's like that? Can you have any examples in your 30 years coaching?
Yeah, I mean, every parent, obviously wants the best for their son, and we understand that. I mean, I have three kids that all play sports, and you want them to have a great experience and play. So I get it. And then being the assistant here, I probably get more of the text or phone calls, than about that want to vent to me or ask me things, which is fine. Um, if you really want, it's tough when they start saying, talking about other players or why is so and so playing. You don't want to ever say anything bad about another kid or anything like that. I'll always try to explain, if it's playing time, for instance, what the situation is and what they could do to play more, things like that. But, parents that are, uh, getting on social media and talking bad about the coaches or program could definitely be a problem, that are in the crowds, and a big thing is, what are they saying to their sons? Are they saying talking crap about the coaches and the other players and things, and that can get in the kid's head and can affect his attitude if he doesn't know how to block that out. And um, so luckily we haven't had, we don't have tons of issues with parents, because we try to do our due diligence up front and bring in, the right, do our, background checks before. But, sometimes they'll have unrealistic expectations. They'll get here and, their son started their entire life and played the entire game their entire life and been the leading scorer their entire life. Now they're the seventh or eighth man. And especially parents that maybe, well, I shouldn't even say that, but sometimes parents that didn't have a sports background, that hasn't played, or their dad hasn't played or been around it, maybe don't understand it as much. But then also sometimes the parents where they did play is just a bigger problem. So I'm not sure on that one, but yeah, that can, that's, and like I said, we don't lose a whole lot. I don't say that to brag, but when you're getting complaints and things and you just won by 20, 25 points and you're still getting text about people not being happy, it's like, kind of kind of puts a damper on it.
Yeah, most definitely. What's the best way for a high school recruit who legitimately has the ability to play at Vincennes get on your staff's radar?
I would say have their coach reach out. Um, I would say have, definitely have, your academics in order, get your grades up as well as they can, because any coach is going to ask, well, where are they at? So if they can mark that box off, hey, I'm a 3.5 student, I'm whatever, okay, got past that mark. Then I would have like your highlight videos and your videos ready. Emails, we get so many emails a day, um, that they just kind of get lost in the shuffle. I mean, I wish I could watch every email video and every direct message video and read them all and watch every one, but that would be, and I'm just one coach, and that'd be all that I got done. So it means more if your coach can call and say, hey, and then their coach has got to be somebody that's reputable. That if they say something, you can't say, "Hey, this guy could be really good for you," and there's no way in the world he could play for you. That kind of loses their credibility. So they got to kind of reach out to levels that, and most coaches are pretty good at that, but some aren't. But I would have their coaches reach out and say, "Hey, we got Johnny over here, and he's 6'2" point guard. He's had a big season for us. I love him. He's a gym rat. He's a great student. Let me send you a 2-minute clip. Here's our schedule. If anytime you want to come to practice, or a game, let me know, and then you're kind of on the radar. And then you can always put out your videos on your X and Instagram and some of your basic stuff that might catch our eye. And then a lot of it's from scouts and people like yourself. We do look at rankings and stuff. We don't. That's not the end all be all, but that'll give us an idea. Okay, this guy's supposed to be pretty good, and his video looks pretty good. And so we look at the rankings and the different scouts and kind of their write ups on different things, what they say about them. And then we have all these former players that have played for us and all these connections because of coaching so many years that they kind of know what we're looking for. And I always look at it, but it's kind of funny that most players and most people aren't the perfect fit. We try to be extremely selective. So you got to fit a type of student, type of character, type of player, type of. I mean, if we're taking one or maybe two players at a position, that's pretty high. It's tough to fit into that. I mean, there's a lot of guys' videos say, yeah, he's pretty talented, but what makes him separate from the next guy? Is he just play harder than everybody else? Is he the guy putting in the extra time? Has he got the grades? This guy's a 3.7. This guy's a 2.2. We're going to take the 3.7 if everything is equal. This guy, when you ask the coach, yeah, he's okay. I like him, or is it the coach? Oh, I love him. He's my favorite player. He's a leader. So anything you can do to separate yourself, whether it be here or if you're trying to play at University of Evansville or wherever you're trying to play at, anything you can do to separate yourself helps.
What about retention? I want to talk about, JUCO roster building is different. You're developing players or guys to move on. So in some ways, your success means you're constantly replacing good players, right? How
Mhm.
difficult is it to recruit knowing that you have to rebuild a large portion of your roster every year?
Yeah, I mean, we're just used to it. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. I mean, we hope they're so good and and we're so successful that they leave after a year. I mean, we hope that we win a national title this coming year, and these guys we've recruited are better than we think, and play just unbelievably and get the Division 1 offers they want, and everybody's happy, and all that good stuff. So like I said, we've been coaching, especially in junior college, so long. You only have them 2 years max, so it is a little difficulty knowing that, hey, we got them a lot better, and now they're kind of understanding what we're trying to do, and now they're moving on. So that part's tough, but you just know it. That's just the name of the game, and like I said, that's the way it is really in Division 1 now. If you have somebody more in a couple year, I mean, it's year to year, unless they change the rules. It's everything's year to year, and you're just trying to build the best team you can for that year. And if you're lucky enough to have 5 or 6 guys back that you like, then great. If you have 3 back, then great. If it's one, you don't know. You kind of get a feel during the season. Hey, this guy's really good. He's probably, we had Dre Vassar last year from Louisville Trinity, who was a redshirt freshman, and and he ended up being an All American, and we knew it was more than likely we weren't going to have him back. We'd love to have him back for another year, but he's at EKU and got a good Division 1 offer, and we're happy for him. But it's just the name of the game, and at a junior college, you know that they're here 1 or 2 years, and that's it.
So since you replace guys every year or every 2 years, do you recruit year round? Like, are you recruiting next year's class already?
Yeah, we're starting to get names and get some background information and things like that. We don't really offer anybody or get them on visits or anything till later on as we get going. Like I said, most of the guys we recruit we think are Division 1 guys, so they're kind of locked in, going into their senior year thinking they're going to get Division 1 offers or hoping for it. But we're getting names now, and we have our shootouts and camps in the summer. Guys might catch our eyes, and then like I said, we know kind of the top programs and in this 5 hour radius, and starting to get names and coaches telling us to keep an eye on. And so yeah, it's pretty much year round. We won't sign them till later, but we'll start getting names and people getting on our radars now, and just kind of follow them from there. And some guys have really big senior seasons, and you hope to get them. Some don't play as well as you think, and but yeah, definitely getting guys and names on our radar right now.
New 5-for-5 era. College basketball is changing again with the new eligibility structure, commonly known as 5-for-5. From the junior college perspective, what's your reaction to the new eligibility model?
It's a little bit different. No more red shirting, obviously. You once you start 19 and enroll full time, you have 5 years to play, which is good. Everybody gets an extra year. It's kind of built in there if you do have the injury or what have you. Our good thing is if you come here and play for 1 year, you have 4 years still left at Division 1 or Division 2. If you play here 2 years, you still have three. It used to be pretty much everybody went to junior college for 2 years, and then you had 2 years left at the 4 year school. So now, you're going to have at least three, which is good, and possibly four. So I think it's good with all these waivers and everything. It's kind of crazy right now. They got to get it kind of figured out what they're going to do, and this class of 2022, and if they're going to let them play or not. It could push some guys out here at the last minute. So um, it doesn't really affect us a whole lot, other than just in general with the transfer portal guys not being able to sit out or not having to sit out anymore. Um, we don't get a lot of bounce backs from Division 1 or Division 2. Sometimes they'd have really good years and they would transfer and they didn't want to have to sit out, so they'd come play JUCO for a year. Now they don't have to sit out anymore. I mean, you still get a few transfers that maybe didn't play a whole lot, that maybe don't have a whole lot of really good Division 1 offers. So you'll get a few, but not nearly as many as maybe you did before. But the 5-on-5 rule, and we get probably some more high school guys that are that are pretty good that maybe would have signed Division 1 10 years ago, but a lot of the 4 year schools want the older guys, that are 21, 22, 23 years old, instead of the 18-year olds. So we'll get guys that probably would have signed Division 1 10 years ago. We got a few on this year's team that I think, that are freshmen that should have probably signed Division 1, but we were lucky enough that they didn't. So they should be really good for us. But that's probably the biggest thing with the 5-5.
Before we close out, a little rapid fire. The best trait a recruit can have besides talent.
Uh, Probably toughness. Probably toughness.
Most underrated part of recruiting.
As far as like from our side,
Yeah,
or
yeah, from your side.
like what we're looking for in a player in recruiting.
Yeah,
Um, Probably putting a team, not just collecting talent, but recruiting a team that has different roles and things. I don't think people maybe think about that so much. They just collect talent where you need guys to play certain spots and roles.
highlights or full game film.
Uh, I probably like highlights more to get an idea, and then you can go watch them practice or play in person. We have so much going on with our own players and workouts and practices and scouting and things. It's hard to sit down and watch a whole lot of games, full game films of guys. So if we get a 2 3 minute clip, okay, he's got the basic. Now I want to go see him in person, or bring him on a visit and seeing him in person, more so than just sitting down and watching complete games.
Hardest thing to teach.
Um, Probably a motor. Guy that doesn't have a motor, it's hard to get them consistently to have that motor and to play hard and to compete. Probably
One word that describes Vincennes basketball.
elite, elite.
One thing every high school recruit should know about JUCO basketball.
It's dog eat dog. It's competitive. We always say we want dogs, not cats. You gotta be tough. It's not easy in JUCO. It's not glamorous. It's for tough guys. So very competitive.
Before we close out, Coach, you've been around that program for more than 2 decades, seen hundreds of players come across through or come through Vincennes. When your coaching career is eventually over and you look back at all the wins, the tournament runs, the championships, and the players who've moved on to the 4 year programs and the NBA, what do you hope players say they received from Brian Davis and Vincennes University beyond basketball?
I hope they say, he was an honest guy. What he said he meant, and what he said he would do, he did. I hope they would say that I cared about them, not just as basketball players, but academically and how they acted off the floor and things like that. And I would hope they say he's a good guy that they liked to be around. They learned the game from and knew what he was doing, and just I hope they enjoy their time at Vincennes. And every day is not going to be fun and sunshine, but I hope they say, man, I'm glad I went there. I learned a lot. It made me a better man, and it was a great experience.
Coach Davis, man, I really appreciate you joining the Pure Prospects podcast. For every player and parent watching, hopefully this conversation gives you a better understanding of junior college basketball, and it shows why choosing the right developmental situation can sometimes be more important than simply choosing the biggest logo. Coach, man, again, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Cody. I really appreciate it, and appreciate all you're doing to help out kids and families find programs and keep doing what you're doing.
All right, man, have a great Sunday night.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Yes, sir.